Hi everyone, I'm making this video to update you on the status of PHIL005. So we know it's a really crazy time and we hope that you're all doing alright. So here's what I'd like to do in the video. I'd like to tell you where PHIL005 was supposed to be going and how we're going to change the plan for the new setup. So let's jump right into it. So from all of us, we hope that you're doing alright. So this situation is obviously highly unprecedented. No one anticipated that Penn would completely shut down and go online in the middle of the semester. So everything that we're doing right now is experimental. None of us plan to be doing this. And, you know, we're not really sure how all of this is going to pan out. So all of us are trying our best, and we're going to try some things to keep this class going, and I'm sure your other classes are doing things to try to keep themselves going as well. But we might have to change some things as they go. All right, so one thing I do want to say, though, before we get into the plan is that wherever you find yourself in this situation, we know some of you are moving, we know some of you will get sick, we know that some of you will have to take on new jobs to try to pay for your new situation. So we know that everyone's going to find themselves in a different situation. So wherever you find yourself in this situation, we're going to try to work with you. And hopefully the new plan that I'm about to lay out will be a little bit more accommodating of everybody. All right. Okay, so let's remind ourselves where we are in PHIL005. So here was the very first slide at the very beginning of the class. Right after that, I showed you what I called the first slide at the time, and I'm hoping this joke is still funny. Anyways, okay, so the very beginning of logic. So what we're doing in logic is we're studying arguments. So we said as cell biology is to cells, as logic is to arguments. So we're studying arguments. And here are the main topics that we were going to try to cover in PHIL005. So the main big thing we're talking about is what makes an argument good. So we spent a little bit of time at the beginning talking about what makes something an argument. But then we've spent most of the semester talking about what makes a deductive argument good. So we've been focused on deductive argument goodness. And we've been looking at theories of validity in particular. So remember, that's one kind of deductive argument goodness. So we've been looking at theories of validity in particular, and ones that give us a theory of validity in terms of the form of an argument. So there we looked at truth functional logic, which is a theory of the validity of truth functionally valid deductive arguments. And to try to understand truth functional logic, we had the tool of truth tables. We also looked at proofs in truth functional logic. Right before break, we switched to talking about first-order logic. So in first-order logic, which is an extension of truth functional logic, we also had proofs. And where we were going to go is that we were going to add in this notion of a model that was going to help us understand when a first-order sentence is true or false. After that, we were going to talk a little bit about other kinds of logics that try to make sense of deductive arguments. After that, we were going to talk a little bit about the limits of logic. And then we were going to switch over to talking about inductive argument goodness. And there in particular, we were going to look at some arguments or some ways of thinking about combinatorics, which is the theory of counting. We were also going to think about probability. So where were we? So we were about right here when COVID-19 hit and we had spring break, which is where we find ourselves now. So we've done some proofs in first-order logic. We were going to do more proofs in first-order logic, and then we were going to start talking about models. So remember, when we were thinking about the course, I warned everyone that the course difficulty was going to increase quite a lot over time, and that people often find this class frustrating. And one reason they find it frustrating is because the difficulty of the class sneaks up on you over time. So one of the really unfortunate things about taking a break and switching formats at this time in the semester is that we were very close to the peak of difficulty. So that's about where we were when this whole transformation happened. So we're very close to the peak of difficulty. So this is a point where a lot of people will start to find themselves quite frustrated. So this new online setup is going to make it even more complicated and difficult to do this, but we're going to try to do our best. All right. So here, let's talk about the changes that we're going to have for the new online version of this class. So we're going to try to have minimal changes in the content. So we'll have to have some changes in the content just because how you present things online will be a little bit different than how I would present it in lecture. But we're going to try to cover a lot of the same material. We're going to drop the second exam, though. So there were supposed to be 2 midterm exams and then a final exam. The second exam was supposed to be like a week from now or something like that. That's just gone, so you don't have to worry about that at all. We'll have the final exam online. Obviously, all elements of this class will be online. And in particular, the final exam will be a on your own time kind of situation. So there'll be a window in which you can take the final exam, and we'll say more about that as the time gets closer. But there'll be a window in which you can take the final exam, maybe a 3 or 4 day window, and then you'll have the opportunity to take the exam in that time whenever you'd like. A large part of the final exam, the way I'd like to do it now, is I want to have questions that are the sort of questions where you can't get them wrong. You're forced to get them right if you submit them. So here, to think about an example, think about the Carnap questions. So in the Carnap questions, it won't let you submit it for credit until you've gotten the right answer. So one of the benefits of that sort of thing is it may take you some extra time, but you'll know when you submit it if you got credit. So this should make the final exam a little bit easier in a certain sense, at least in the stress level, because you'll know that you've gotten a certain part of it right if you're able to submit it. All right, another change we're going to make is we're going to totally drop deadlines of any kind for the rest of the class. So we're going to still have homeworks, and they're going to still be due, we might say, or I might say in the lectures, on certain dates, but those are all advisory deadlines. These are all recommendations for when you should turn things in. So there's not going to be any requirements at all for when you turn things in, except that you have to turn in everything by the end of the class, and we'll say more about that when the time gets closer about when that is exactly, because right now we don't know. We're waiting on the administration to give us some guidance on how the classes will end. But you have to turn everything in by the end of the class, and you'll have to do the final exam within the final exam period, but we'll try to be as flexible as possible in defining what that period is. So we're trying to make the class as flexible time-wise as we possibly can. So there'll be deadlines listed on the syllabus and things like that, but these are just recommended deadlines for you to keep pace with the course. So if you fall behind, you won't be penalized at all. Okay, so we'll include recommended deadlines. So there's obviously not going to be any in-class lectures or recitation because everything's online now. But there will be weekly lectures still. So there'll be weekly videos, maybe a video like this one. And some of those lectures will be live. At least I'm going to try to pull that off. And what I mean by that is there'll be lectures like this where you're able to watch them in real time while I'm actually doing them. And then you'll be able to contribute to those by asking questions, either out loud or in chat. That's something we're still trying to work out. So you'll be able to ask questions, and then I'll be able to answer those questions live. So if you can attend those lectures, you're welcome to, and hopefully the ability to interact with them will help you understand the material better. But if you can't attend those lectures, that's totally fine. We're going to record all of these, and they'll all be viewable later. So if you're not available to watch the lectures when they're being done live, you can just watch them later. And some of the lectures won't be recorded live anyways for a few reasons. One reason is that I already have some lectures recorded from another online class that I'll use for parts of the content for this class where it makes sense. And another reason is that my home internet, ironically, is not being super awesome right now, even though it's been great in the past. Okay, so we'll try to have online live lectures, but some of those might not be live, and either way you can watch the recordings later, so whatever works for you. We're also going to have lots of office hours, and we're still going to have recitations and workshops. So those are obviously all going to be online too, and we're going to have a schedule for those, and that'll be forthcoming. We're still working out the schedule. And we know that people are in all kinds of time zones, so we're going to have office hours and recitations and workshops at really different times throughout the week, and maybe even on the weekend. So we're going to have office hours and recitations hopefully early in the day or late in the day, so people who are on the other side of the world from here are able to still attend them while the sun is up. But importantly, none of these are required. So previously in the class, to get your participation credit, you had to attend recitations. That's no longer true. You don't have to attend anything at all in order to get all the credit for the rest of this class. All right, so let's talk about that more exactly. So let's talk about grade changes in the new version of the class. So let's think about exams. So on the old version of the class, we had 2 midterm exams. Each was worth 17.5%. And there was a final exam worth 25%. So remember, now we're dropping the second exam. So we'll just have the first exam still worth 17.5%. And we'll still have the final exam worth 25%, but just no middle exam. What about the homework? So that includes the Carnap assignments and the Canvas problem sets and the written homework that we've already done. Those were previously worth 30%. Now they're going to be worth 47.5%. So basically what I did is I took the credit that was on the previous midterm exam, the previously upcoming midterm exam that we're not going to have. I took that 17.5% and I put that onto the homework. We're still going to have a participation requirement. So previously there were you could optionally participate in lecture, or you could participate in the required recitations. And we're still going to count that as 10%. But as I mentioned earlier, you're not required to attend any recitations or office hours or workshops. If you do attend those things, and if you do participate in those, that can count as your participation credit. So you can keep satisfying that requirement that way. But you can also participate by emailing with me or the TAs about questions. And in many cases, if you email me with a complicated question, I'll probably ask to try to meet with you sometime, either in office hours or in a special appointment. So you can do it over email. But we're also, I just set up this collaborative Q&A discussion forum on Canvas. So the way you get there is you go on Canvas and you click on this new button for discussions right there. And then if you have a question, you can ask that question by clicking this button here. And so you make a little post, you ask the question, and you can get your participation points by going in and interacting in those discussions. So if someone else asks a question, you can try to answer that question. And the whole idea here is lots of times in this class, you learn a lot from the other people in the class. You say, oh, I don't know what's going on with this. Can you help me understand this? And the person goes, oh yeah, I understand that. Here's how it works. So the idea is to try to get some of that going online, especially if you want to ask a question that you think other people are going to ask or that it would be helpful to other people to know the answer to. You should go online and do it on the forum here, and then hopefully someone else will chime in with an answer. And so that'll be another way of getting your participation requirement if you're unable to attend recitation or office hours. All right. So will there be more changes for the class? The answer is I don't know, and none of us know. So there probably will be more changes, but we're going to have to adjust things as they go. So we're going to have to see how things change. So we're just not going to know until we get more administrative guidance or see what happens in the world. And we're also going to have to see how these things work out. So if we try the live lectures and they're not really working, we might try to find something else to do. So pay attention to Canvas to see further updates, and I'll probably give further updates in lectures and announcements. Okay, so thank you all for listening to this lecture. Here's a picture of my cat. I love when Junior sticks his tongue out like that. But I hope you're all doing okay. If you find yourself in a particular situation that you think is going to impact your performance in the class, especially given the new format of the class, please reach out to us and we can help you try to figure out what's best to do. But I hope you're all doing all right, and I'll see you, or you'll see me soon. Bye-bye.